What's up, guys? It's Tony here. Welcome back to Man Cave Studios. Ladies and gentlemen, I am bringing back the Tony Talks podcast for an episode, maybe more, I guess we'll see. But today we are going to talk about discipline. Now, the previous versions of this podcast were pretty long, pretty boring, and didn't feature my own footage. So today I'm going to do the exact opposite of that. I'm going to make this relatively short, get to the point, and use footage that is mine from my various vacations from over the summer. Season 21, feel free to check out those vlogs. So anyways, let's talk about discipline. What is discipline? There really isn't a good, like Webster's dictionary type definition for what discipline is. I like to define discipline as willpower, balance, and stamina. And all three of them are necessary in order to call yourself a disciplined person. So let's talk about all of them. And this can be applicable to whether you're going through addiction. I made a podcast episode about that a long time ago. It could be, about working out, about, anything else that you set yourself out to achieve. So basically, discipline is kind of the willpower, balance, and stamina that it takes to achieve that. So let's talk about each of those individual components. Let's start with willpower. No, I'm not talking about the IndyCar champion. I am talking about basically the drive, determination, and energy that you need to get really anything done. It's kind of at, the basis of it. Willpower is kind of your ability to get out of bed and, do something, pretty much anything, whether that's, eating breakfast, going to work, whatever that is. Willpower is kind of what guides you through that. The motive behind why you set out to achieve your actions. Not even why you set out to achieve them, just the fact that you are setting out to achieve them. Even if they're relatively small things. I mean, it could be something like, reading books or whatever. And working out, running, learning something new, that's all kind of more of, a hardcore type thing. Stuff that it takes a little bit more effort to get yourself to do. That's where willpower comes in. So how do you get willpower? How do you achieve this? Or at least, enough to call yourself a disciplined person or to follow, the rules of discipline. You got to start with setting goals. Everybody sets goals. Every day of your life, you set a goal. Whether it's, something small, like today I'm going to tackle this project at work, or whatever else. But on a large scale, you've got to set goals for yourself, what I call SMART goals, what a lot of people call SMART goals. They have to be realistic. They have to be achievable. They have to be not too easy to achieve or so tough that you're designed to fail. But they have to kind of be in the middle somewhere, which kind of relates to balance a little bit, and I'll talk about that in a minute. You have to set goals. That's the basis for having willpower, because if you don't have goals, you don't have direction. So, a lot of people like to set New Year's resolutions. I don't see a problem with that, but you can't wait for New Year's to set new goals. Your goals change as the year goes on. Sometimes you fail your goals, and that's okay, as long as you make new ones and set out to achieve those. If you have New Year's resolutions, then you have to stick to them throughout the year. Kind of, adjusting them as your motives change over time. So let's just say, for example, you have a New Year's resolution to run a 5K in under 30 minutes, and you achieve that. So once you achieve that, it's not just, okay, well, let's pack up our bags and go home. You want to set a new one to run it in under 25 minutes. Just kind of encouraging yourself to continue doing something, even something that's really hard. And if you can't run a 5K in under 30 minutes despite trying, and you're not even getting close, maybe you adjust that goal to 35 minutes instead of just outright giving up. So your New Year's resolutions are a good basis point if you set those. I know a lot of people kind of set goals on sort of maybe even a quarterly basis or less, and that's probably even better. As long as you have goals and you stick to them, and if you fail them, you set new ones, that is how you achieve willpower. Which brings me to balance. Balance is how much you set out to achieve something. So, for example, if you want to be a runner, right, you can take the athlete's mentality of pushing your body through the pain. You can try to run every day, but you're not doing it and gaining anything from it. So, you don't want to run every day. I mean, rest is part of recovery with anything. Working out, you don't want to, do push day every day. You don't want to do like workouts designed for one body part every day, one muscle. You want to kind of spread it out a little bit. You have to have a little bit of balance between the different types of workouts you do. There are long demos and a lot of information out there on working out and, with regards to running, how you kind of train yourself to run. And a big part of it is rest. You have to balance training with rest. You don't want to use it as an excuse to, spend the whole week resting and not running, because that's the easiest way to give up. Or if your goal is to eat healthier, maybe you have a cheat day every now and again. You don't want to overdo it on the cheat day. Again, part of the balance. There's nothing wrong with, I don't know, having something small. Maybe you have like Reese's Puffs for breakfast or something, and that's your cheat for the day. You don't want to go all out, otherwise you're going to ruin everything that you've set out to achieve that week, and basically starting over from scratch. So you don't want to load up on sugar one day a week and then you spend the rest of the week trying to burn it off. Then it's a zero-sum game. Whatever you achieve, you have to achieve it healthily. Don't give yourself ailments in the process if it's working out. Don't overdo it if it's, cheat day on sugar. And basically how you achieve this is kind of set a schedule and stick to it, regardless of what you do. So if you designate one day as a cheat day, okay, that's fine. So that is your cheat day. And from there, you limit yourself to maybe one or two small things which you cheat with, and then you move on to the next day, and then you're off sugar and off anything unhealthy for the next 6 days. If your goal is to read a book every month, set time aside every day to read it. Now this is a little bit different what I'm about to tell you. Don't make it the same exact time every day, because that can be good for setting your schedule, but if you have something overlap, like say you say like 9 o'clock is the time that you set aside to read every night, and then you have a couple of events back-to-back nights, then you'll kind of use that as an excuse not to read. And that's the easiest way to lose your goal, right? Like I generally like working out in the morning, but if there are times where, I have something in the morning or there's something before that, maybe I'll skip a day occasionally. If it's like a week, then that's not good. I don't think I've ever went a full week without working out in the last, few years, besides like injury, pulling a muscle or something like that. You don't want to consistently do something at one time of day, because then if you don't do it that time of day, you're not going to want to do it any other time of the day. So you always want to make sure, you kind of stretch things out a little bit. Sometimes I'll work out in the evenings. I won't go to the gym in the evenings, and I'll talk about the gym and stuff in a little bit. But it's good to occasionally do stuff at other times of the day that relate to your goals. So that way, it's not like, oh, I have to do it at this exact time or I'm not doing it at all. And then, like I said before, you want to kind of designate rest days or cheat days based on professional guidance for workouts and for eating. What's kind of a healthy way to cheat even. Like I said, there are professional guides online for everything, and they're really easy to look up. Information on this stuff has never been more accessible. So don't overdo it also, or you'll burn yourself out. Which leads me to stamina. So, what is stamina? Stamina is persistence over time. Now, this is the hardest part of being disciplined, is that, okay, you can stick to your goals for 2 weeks, but what about 2 years, right? Like, you can have willpower and you can have balance where you can do all of this, and it might be a little difficult, but it's relatively easy to do the first couple of weeks. It's really easy to stick to goals for 2 weeks, especially if your deadline is, distant in the future. Then you can ride willpower and balance this far. People who have suffered with addiction in the past, like I have, nothing major for me. It was really just soda when I was a kid, and then social media at times growing up. I completely got off soda and quit cold turkey when I was 17 years old. Social media, I kind of got off that in 2020-ish, maybe a little after that. I go back on occasionally for work purposes, but that's pretty much it. It's really easy to quit the first couple weeks. It was a little bit tough, but the idea was that, okay, well, it's just the start of it. Maybe eventually I'll go back to it. The cravings really set in weeks 3 through 7. Those are the toughest weeks because you can get through 2 weeks thinking this way, and you can go to the gym for 2 weeks, but what happens after 2 weeks? The goal isn't fresh in your mind anymore. You're fighting at this point. Like, you're well in it. How do you keep on going after that? How do you keep your willpower and the balance that it takes to achieve your goals for longer than a couple of weeks? This is kind of become a joke. People often fail their New Year's resolutions before the end of January, and then they give up for the next 11 months. The gym is really packed the first couple of weeks of a new year, and then it's really not after that. I actually don't even go to the gym the first 3 weeks of a calendar year. I just work out at home, and wind up going back 3 weeks later. The one time I went to the gym early in January, it was a nightmare. It was a zoo in there, and then I went back a few weeks later and there was nobody in there, which was good for me, but bad for all the people that quit. So how do you achieve stamina? How do you kind of get enough stamina to stick to your goals over time? Well, this is sort of a multi-part process. This isn't as easy as setting a schedule or setting goals or anything like that. There are multiple steps that go into stamina. The first is to stop thinking about things in terms of weeks, months, or years. You have to think about just today. So whatever your goal is, if your goal is to work out, just work out today. If your goal is to spend 15 minutes learning a new language or a new instrument, do it today. Fighting your addiction, do it today, and don't think about tomorrow. When you wake up the next day, then you think about today all over again. But you're not thinking about tomorrow. You're never thinking about tomorrow. You're thinking about, let me just get through today. And if you get through today enough, then eventually those weeks will turn to those days, first off, will turn to weeks, which will turn to months, which will turn to years. I have gone 8 years without drinking soda, not thinking about it in terms of, going a decade originally without drinking soda, which I know I'm going to achieve at this point, but thinking about it in terms of days and just getting through it one day at a time. Second part of this is to set your goals designed for the long term and then count each occurrence. Work out, for example. Set it for, 250 days a year, and then every time you work out, add another number to the counter. Now, you're still not thinking about it in terms of, I have to work out 250 days, or I have to work out a certain number of days every month. You're thinking, this is kind of your little reward at the end of the day. If you have a counter for how many times you worked out over the course of a given year, and you're adding to it every day, that can feel pretty rewarding when you sit down and you get to add it to that counter that night. For an early stage addiction battle, for example, I gave you my addiction of soda growing up. Set a maximum number and then count down from it. So instead of counting up how many days, count down. So say, for example, your addiction is like mine, soda. Basically, at the start of it, if you're really struggling with it and you can't quit cold turkey, set a count of, let's just say, 25. and then every time that you drink soda throughout the year, you have to take a number off. This is kind of the inverse of the reward of adding a number to the end of the day. You have to manually go in and remove a number from your counter every time you drink soda. So this also prevents you from kind of letting it spiral out of control. This sort of is how you keep yourself from, not looking at a specific day like, oh, well, I drank soda at 1 o'clock this afternoon. I'm going to drink 3 more cups in, the rest of the day, and then I'll start again tomorrow. This way, if you cave and you drink soda, then you remove one number from the count, and then that's it for the day. And then the last part of this is to remove distractions that are preventing you from achieving your goals. So over the course of the long term, if you find yourself, watching Netflix or going on social media when you should be achieving your goals, when you should be, sitting down to read that book, if your goal is to read a book every month, when you're, setting out to go to the gym, you need to find a way to limit these distractions. Cancel that Netflix subscription. Get off of social media if that's a distraction for you. Whatever your distraction might be, you need to get rid of that distraction somehow. Otherwise, that is going to continuously prevent you from achieving your goal. So that's it. That's what I have to say about discipline. Would you add anything? Would you subtract anything? Is there anything you agree or disagree with in this video? Let me know. And I hope you enjoyed all of the fun little driving and then concerts and stuff that I've shown you from vlogs throughout the summer season. So anyways, thank you guys very much for listening, and peace out, broskies.